When you step into this and when you're going through some cultural change, which you're doing, please don't let the existing culture dictate your approach. You're going to fail right from the beginning if you do that. You have to be clear that you will be in trouble from the beginning if people that you're around you insist, we've always done it this way, we're going to continue doing it this way. No. You're going to bring the change that you want to your organization, and you have to dictate the approach. You have to be very clear. This is where we're going. This is what we're going to do. When you step into some operations, people always want to take you to history. General Motors were great at that. I remember a conference in Florida where we were shocked out of this because lots of people in GM always looked at the past. We were the biggest. We were the best. We made most money. We're fantastic. And I'm still inspired by the Don Henley video that they played to us about don't look in the rearview mirror, look to the future. Because that's where what you have to deal with. The past is past, it's gone. You might have had glory, you might have had a good business, but if you don't change and you don't shape, in the future, you will be one of those casualties along the way. Bochum plant. I was there as an advisor, my first job in GM. Everybody told me, John, you don't understand anything. We've always done it this way. My point was, yeah, but look at where you are today. Eastern Europe is going to take your business. Look at Poland today. 17,000 people eventually lost their job. It wasn't me that took their jobs away. The world took their jobs away. So you have to focus on the future and get people to understand that the future is what you're dealing with. Standing still means going backwards. If you stand still and say, we're really good. That was my message to Gliwice. Don't be complacent. Keep moving forward. And the world is going so fast. Having come back from China for 4 years, you have to be careful. That country is going to eat your lunch very soon if you don't recognize that you have to compete with them. It's going to be tough. Two examples. I deliberately destabilized my groups, my leadership teams. I had a variety of skills, a variety of attitudes, and I needed them to get on board with me. And I needed to unsettle them. And I absolutely destabilized the old order. Ellesmere Port, 84 managerial changes in the first 2 months. The whole organization was stripped out and reorganized in a much leaner, flatter organization that was in keeping with the Japanese style of operation that I'm used to. China, I had about 20 expats from all over the FCA world, Italians and Americans, and I think 2 survived, and I brought in a new team. I did it in the proper HR manner. They were treated correctly. They went to different jobs in different places, but I brought my team in, those I could trust, those people that I knew would follow those goals that we were trying to set out. And I call it the critical mass of change agents. I'm sure in your organization you recognize very well which ones are your strong change agents. You've got the ones that will follow, the ones that will try to stop, and you've got the change agents that will make it happen. You need to have them in your organization, whether it's big or small, whether it's 1 person or 2 people or 10 or 12 or 20. The one thing that I try to also demonstrate, and I do think it's important, we've touched around leadership, I've listened to groups and presentations. You as the leader have to show you care. The gentleman yesterday from BSH, his passion, his energy, his message was inspirational to me. And I've been around a lot, but I was impressed. He cared. If the people you're working with don't think you care, why the hell should they follow you? They won't be interested. They'll go to somebody else or something else. I call it tough love. So when I'm coaching people in certain situations and they're getting a bit edgy, I'd put my arm around there and told them, please, this is just tough love. I want to help you get better. But you have to see them through unpopular choices that you have to make to get the business moving in the right direction. Driving change and driving hard for the future, it's an emotional journey. I mean, we can talk about all the tools of Lean, and there are many of them. There's hundreds of books on it. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. There's enough books out there to read. But actually, it's an emotional journey connecting with people's brains and their hearts. I was asked on several occasions, well, how long is it going to take to fix this? And my answer was always this: I don't know. The journey is as long as the distance between the two ears of everybody that's involved. It's how they're processing what we're doing and how they're starting to accept it. But the leader must show unwavering commitment to make it happen. You've got to lead from the front in doing this. A lot of people have talked about this. This is pretty simple for me. Keep score. Measure everything. When I stepped into a Japanese car plant 35 years ago, something like that anyway, I came from a chaotic British car industry that was full of strife, strikes, awful, awful place. You walk through a Japanese car plant and everywhere there was a chart, there was a graph, there was something going on. You couldn't speak and read kanji, but you could read the graph. You could see progress. They kept simple visualization. You could walk it, you could see it, you could understand it. And it was very calm and everybody knew what they were doing. But as an old friend of mine who wrote a book after our experiences in Japan said, if you haven't got a metric, invent it. Doesn't matter if it's not exactly accurate. Just start measuring it and see progress against whatever you're measuring. Through those KPIs, and this is something I mentioned in the group yesterday, you can't just keep the score and then do nothing with it. You have to use it to engage with people. As we said yesterday in our Opel Polska operation, all of the charts and graphs that we monitored the progress, I took my whole staff every month and reviewed it with the teams and coached them every single time and supported them. So keeping score, tracking progress, lets people know that you're serious and you're going to review it. Don't keep score and not look at it. You have to promote your vision. What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to get to? We heard about the cost reduction here. We heard yesterday about competitiveness. And as I said to the gentleman afterwards, China is already moving white goods manufacturing to Africa because it's too expensive in China. So you have to have your vision of where you want to take your teams to. You have to champion it, you have to stand on it, and you have to be sure that everybody understands where you're going. And the bottom point, as somebody mentioned it yesterday, middle management often are a problem. I used to call it my frozen middle. They were the ones that had to work on the most. Team members, you give them good leadership, they'll follow you. Senior leaders will ask you to do something. Middle managers will be cynical, they'll be difficult, and you have to be clear on where you're taking them. And that doubt and second guessing and, oh, we've seen this before from that middle management, they'll try to push you off course. Don't let them. Keep moving forward. The other thing with change that I found is that when you get down to why operations were not working, you would see endless, we have to do these reports and we have to do that report. And you start doing somewhat of a process evaluation of what those reports do. People receive them, never read them, put them in a drawer. What a complete waste of money and time. So I'd put it like this: free your people up from the bureaucracy. Use the technology, we've just heard about that, to let it do the work. It's easier to get support for cultural change and the changes you want when people see you're actually making concrete actions and steps to make it different. So free up the people from the bureaucracy, make it simple, keep your score, change is honest and will continue. This one is so important because it starts to address why. And if you just put out a weekly newsletter or not, who bothers to read that? Not everybody. You think when you go to a lot of trouble to write it and you're so keen that it's done, actually when it gets out to the people you want to get to, many of them don't even bother. An operation I worked in, the people were reading one of the, there's 4,500 people there. I can't say everybody was the same, but there was a general tendency that people would read one of the famous tabloid newspapers in the UK called The Sun. It's a piece of crap. They read sensational headlines. They turn the page and look at the picture on the third page, which we won't talk about. Then they flick to the back and read the sport. Any relative news, they're not interested. So when you start talking to the organization that, hey, this plant's in trouble, the industry's in trouble, cost pressure is on all of us, cost. Because in the end of the day, that's what we're chasing this with. You have to start educating people. You have to explain why. If you don't explain why should they bother? They're not going to get it from their newspaper. They won't get it necessarily from their one-page report that you tell them about something going on in the factory. So you have to tailor your education to why you're doing something and crank up that communication effort. I had lunchbox meetings every single week. 10 people sat around very casually, me as plant manager, directly with the people. This is why we have to change. People would say, you'll never close this place. People won't buy cars from Vauxhall anymore. So you educate them with, well, the number one seller of vehicles in the UK is Ford. They build them in Spain and Germany. So my daughters live 200 miles from here. They don't even know where Ellesmere Port is. People live in a bubble. You have to be careful with that. They get believing the propaganda that company puts out. But there's a reality of the world out there. And China's a threat. If you don't educate your people, Romania's a threat. I've just come off an operation. I went back to work after retirement and was running an engineering company. And we had operations here in Poland. I went to visit them. Great people. I was very keen to put work in there. But then I looked at the cost. I put it in Romania. It's cheaper. They're well educated. They speak the language like Poland was to Germany 20 years ago. The salary rates in Gliwice was 15% of a German salary and plant, cost per vehicle. Hugely successful. Nobody could beat us on cost per car. It's not like that anymore. Mr. Korpak will be around later today. I'm sure he'll be talking about the new effort from Peugeot. There's another cultural change going on with that company. They're different. They're asking different things. They're focusing on different things. And you have to crank up that communication effort to make sure people understand why. If they don't understand why are they going to bother to do anything? Expect casualties. I don't mean people getting injured. I mean management not staying the course. When you are trying to make a big cultural change in any of your organizations and you're trying to make it better and do it differently, for sure you'll have people that will jump on board immediately and run with you. They'll be so happy. You'll also have people that will drift along with it, see what happens, but you'll have some people that will constantly try to block it and stop it. You have to deal with that. I dealt with it. I either retired them, put them in a better job on the bus, kept them on the bus. We talked about that yesterday, Jim Collins. Put them in a different seat where they could contribute better. Or, ultimately, they were out of the seat and off the bus. That was another strong signal that change will happen and it's going to continue. What you are trying to do, I do understand, is pretty tough. I was doing this in Bochum, as I mentioned. It was tough. I was insulted. I was abused. People were not supportive, but you have to keep going. You just keep dealing with the situation and keep going and demonstrate your unwavering commitment to it. If you don't, if they say a chink in your commitment, people will try to deflect you. I mean, we've heard this morning about continuously pushing and engaging the teams. You have to keep that going. It's important that you do that. You must be determined to see it through. I'm a great believer in this one. We heard about the Kaizen ideas this morning. You got to involve every single person in the organization. This is not a leader's job. This is not middle management's, but every single person in the organization has to feel engaged. They have to know that things are moving in a certain direction for the good of their future. When I left Ellesmere Port, I was moved, in this case, to go to Rüsselsheim. A team member from the Body in White line, miles away from my office, came down to see me and said, "You've saved our jobs and secured our family's future." And he pulled out of his jumper a pen and gave me as a gift. I was really touched because I knew we'd been getting, not to everybody, but we were getting through to the people that made a difference down on the floor, the people that we wanted to understand why. And as I said, and I often use this phrase, you've got to win hearts and minds every day. If you don't win their hearts and minds, then you're going to have a tough job. What I'm always want you to be cautious about is aware of loyalty. Because people are loyal to the old order. You've got to be careful with that. You've got to get people to be loyal to the future, what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to change.